A lesson for Wednesday 12-2. We're going to do some more factoring like we were doing yesterday, mainly because we need more work with this type of factoring. A lot of us do. It's going to be a little bit harder, but basically the same. So we're looking at, in the first example, I look at this and I think conjugate. This has to be a conjugate because that's an a squared minus b squared. I recognize the perfect squares of 25 and 196. It's x to the fourth. It's an even exponent. So as long as it's an even exponent, it fits this also. So how would I break up 25x to the fourth? Well, it's obviously x squared and x squared. Square root of 25 is 5. Square root of 196. And this is another way you can think about these. You take the square root of both, 5x squared. Take the square root of 196, 14. That gives you your two components. So I do a plus b, a minus b. 5x squared plus 14, 5x squared minus 14. So I'm going to set each of these equal to 0. It's the same as yesterday. We're solving by square root still. I would minus 14. So notice I get an I on the one. On the other one, there is no I. And then I would divide by 5. So minus 14, divide by 5, take the square root. Make sure you pop your I out. Now the square root of 14 over 5, that can be simplified into the square root of 70 over 5, where the 5 is not in the square root. Your calculator might do this for you, and this is an acceptable answer. Also, we'll learn how to do that by hand later this year. And then the other side, it's the same thing. Okay. Down to number 2. Now again, we have numbers in front, an a value in front. So we need to, first of all, set it equal to 0. So this 50x squared, I have to subtract 50x squared to cancel it and make it 0, which means that comes over. Make sure you put it in the middle in the right spot. Standard form. So 3x to the fourth minus 50x squared minus 200. So I need to find the factors of 3x to the fourth, that's 3x squared and x squared, and factors of 200, which is 10 and 20. How do I know those are the right factors? And this is where a lot of you are getting hung up. So let's say I tried 3x squared and x squared. That's the only thing that can work, because that's the only way to make 3 is 3 times 1. What if you did, instead of 20 and 10, you did something like 50 and 4? Look at the outside and look at the inside. The outside multiplied together would make 12x squared, because you're distributing. Distribute the 50 into the x squared gives me 50x squared. 50 and 12 do not make 50. So you need to find the right factors that do. So look for the factors of 200, in this case 20 and 10. Look at the outsides. The outsides make 3 and 20, or negative 60. The inside makes 10 times x squared, which is 10x squared. That, when you combine those like terms together, makes negative 50. So I know that it works. So we'll set, again, it's just solving by square roots. Okay. Now this one, when I minus 10, notice again I pop an I out because I'm taking the square root of a negative. Over here I have the square root of 20. That breaks up into 4 times 5, or 2 times the square root of 5. So that's the final answer, plus or minus 2 times the square root of 5. And there's your 4 answers. Okay, this is the kind of problem that you need the most help with, a lot of you. So let me just do another one of those. Let's say I had 6x to the fourth plus, let's go 20, no, that won't work. Let me go 8 instead. And 27, and we'll go minus 30x squared. So again, we're looking for factors. I need to break 8 up. What are the factors of 8? 1 and 8, 2 and 4. What are the factors of 27? 1 and 27, 3 and 9. So we're trying to find the right combination. Let's try 2 and 4 here. X squared. Let's just put that in and then look at the options. If I put 1 and 27 in, 27 times 4 is going to be way bigger than 30. That doesn't make any sense. It's probably going to be 3 and 9. If I put 3 here and 9 here, I'm at 36 and 6. Watch your signs though. 36 and 6 gives me 30, but I need them both to be minus. That's the only way. A negative times a negative will give me a positive. It's the only way. So that would actually make 36 and 6, which adds up to 42. Negative 42, if these are both negative. So I need to try it the other way. Let's go 3 here and 9 here. Now let's check the outside and inside. 4 times 3 is negative 12. 9 times 2 is negative 18. Negative 12 and negative 18 make negative 30. That's how I know it works. 4x squared minus 9 and 2x squared minus 3. And what's interesting here is that this is actually a conjugate rule. 2x plus 3, 2x minus 3. But you would get the same thing just by solving by square roots. So you can just do that. Let's focus in on number 3. All right, number 3 now. I recognize perfect squares here. Not only do I recognize that they're perfect squares, but the square root of 144 is 12. And 12 times 2 equals 24. So that 2ab formula we've used in the past works here. And that's an easy way to check it. Take the square roots and then do the 2ab, multiply it by 2. So this works. See, what you could factor it into, if you didn't recognize that this is that special formula, what you would do is you would look at it like we did yesterday and say, okay, x to the 4th is x squared and x squared. 144, 12 times 12. And 12 and 12 add up to 24. But you have the same parentheses twice. Why would you write it twice and solve it twice when you have it twice? So all we have to do is just say this to the quantity squared, because I have 2 of them. It is 12x squared minus 12 times itself. So we can just write that as x squared minus 12 squared, because it's times itself. So I only need to solve this once. I don't need to solve it more than once, because I'm going to get the same answer. So I'm going to take x squared minus 12, set it equal to 0, and solve. Add 12. Take the square root of 12. Square root of 12 is plus or minus, and break it down into 4 times 3. Square root of 4 becomes 2, so it's plus or minus 2 times the square root of 3 is the answer. But that is a double root. We have a double root because we get the same answer twice. Because it's that quantity squared, I'm going to get the same answer from here and from this one. I get the same answer twice. You don't need to solve it twice. Just solve it once and then write double root or just d. Okay, so let's take a look at number 4. This is another one that fits this formula. I don't know if you're good at that formula or not, but you look at it, you recognize 16 is a perfect square. Square root of 16 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. But even if you can't use that formula, just factor like normal. X to the 8th would be x to the 4th and x to the 4th. 16 would be 4 times 4. That adds up to 8, but they both have to be minus. Negative 4 and negative 4 add up to negative 8. Negative 4 times negative 4 makes positive 16. But again, look at it. You have it twice. There's no reason to write it twice. Just write it once and put a square there to say it's times itself. You're only going to solve that once. Let's come up here and solve this now. So I'm going to solve this x to the 4th minus 4. And I know that's to the squared, but we'll take care of the double root later. So what I have is x to the 4th minus 4. And we're going to have x to the 4th minus 4 is a conjugate, which is x squared and x squared. Factors of 4 are 2 and 2. X squared plus 2, x squared minus 2. It's a conjugate rule. A squared plus b, a squared minus b. So we keep factoring. We started with x to the 8th, and we brought that down to x to the 4th, and then we factored it again down to x squared. So we factored twice. So let's solve these two. X squared plus 2. That's a simple solve by square roots. Plus or minus I square root of 2. But I have to include double root because I have each of those answers twice. And then do the same thing with x squared minus 2. Add 2, take the square root, plus or minus square root of 2, but add double root because we have that answer twice. So what I have is positive I square root of 2, negative I square root of 2, but I have that twice. That's what double root means. So there's 4 answers. And I have positive square root of 2 and negative square root of 2, but I have that twice. That's what double root means. Okay? So there's all 8 of my answers. I just get them twice. So why solve all that twice? Just solve it once. Take your quantity squared. Take what's in here. Just solve that like you would have done any other problem. Get those answers and just put double root. All right? Go back to live session if you need help. Otherwise, start your homework.